Hi guys, my name's Mitchell Kennedy and welcome to Red Belly Media. If you haven't seen my latest short film, The Attic, click on the link down below and watch that first, because today I'm going to show you how I did this effect. Now to pull off this effect, you're going to need 5 things, and I'll leave links to all of them down below. You're going to need an Xbox 360 Kinect, a Kinect USB power supply, Ipisofts Motion Capture Studio software, After Effects, and the 3D application of your choosing. In my case, Cinema 4D. Now if you don't have Cinema 4D, you can still follow along as long as you know how to camera solve for your specific program.
The first step in the process is to film your background plate. Shoot with a higher shutter speed to eliminate motion blur that could potentially ruin your camera track later on. Next, you're going to need to record your motion capture data to animate your 3D character. You'll need to download Ipisofts Motion Capture Studio as well as their IP Recorder program. IP Recorder is free and IP Mocap Studio comes with a 30-day free trial, so links will be in the description. Once you've installed both of these programs, go ahead and open IP Recorder. Be sure to solve for the background first before you record your animation. Make sure you begin the scene in a T pose and then carry out the required movements. Next, open IP Mocap Studio and load in the video. Set your actor's height and trim off the unwanted footage at the beginning and ending of the animation. Then on the first frame, align the figure with the depth information as good as you can and hit the refit pose button. Once the figure is aligned properly, go ahead and hit track forward. When the track is done, the figure should now copy your movements, but you might notice that it's quite jittery. Bring the slider back to your first frame and hit jitter removal to run through a second refining track. You'll notice when I sit down here the Kinect loses track of my arm behind my leg. That's one of the limitations of using one Kinect. So make sure all 4 limbs are visible to the Kinect throughout the entire range of movement. Now you can bring your 3D model into Mocap Studio under the Export tab as long as it's an FBX file. Now if your model imports with a second model attached to it like this, that's due to the 3D model having a pose morph tag to control facial expressions. So you can ignore it as it won't be present in the final exported file. Once imported, you'll have to go through and select all the bones in the imported model and align them to your mocap skeleton by selecting each bone, clicking the cursor icon, and then selecting the corresponding bone on the model. You'll notice you only have to do one side, as the results will be mirrored to the other side. Once you've done that, if you play the sequence again, you'll see that the 3D model now follows your motion capture data. Now you might notice some weird artifacts like the alien's ankle appearing to break itself, twisty arms and hands disappearing through the model's legs. You'll still need to do some keyframe animation in your 3D software to clean this up, but motion capture gives you a good starting point and is a hell of a lot quicker than starting keyframe animation from scratch. Hit export and save as an FBX file. Now that you've completed the animation side of things, you need to camera solve your original footage so that your camera movements can be replicated in the 3D software. For this I use After Effects 3D Camera Tracker, as you can export the track data straight to a Cinema 4D file. Cinema 4D has its own tracker, but I use After Effects, so I only have to track the footage once, and I can use that data in both programs for multiple effects. If you use any other 3D software, you might have to take a different approach to achieve this step, so let me know in the comments below how you achieve camera tracks for your specific 3D program. Load your footage into After Effects and create a new composition. Click Camera Track and wait for it to solve. Once you've obtained a successful track, right-click on one of the track points and add a solid and camera. Align the solid so it seems to sit on the ground and play the timeline to ensure it sticks correctly. I also add a grid effect to make it easier to see if the track is working or not. Next, save your After Effects project and then click File, Export, Max on Cinema 4D Exporter. Give your track a name and save the file. Now import the file you just created back into After Effects and place it into your composition. Select the Cinema 4D file and click Edit, Edit Original. This will launch Cinema 4D and you'll see the solid you created and the camera. If the camera movements aren't visible when you preview, ensure the timeline start and end frames match that of your After Effects composition. Now to bring your 3D animation into this project, click File, Merge Objects and select the FBX file. Once the model is imported, you can go ahead and delete the Cinema 4D editor null, add a new null and call it Model Position. Change the null's position to around the model's feet before parenting all of the model's elements to the null. Now wherever you move the null, the entire model will follow. Align the 3D model so it's positioned on top of the solid you created. Now if you re-enable the camera, I ran into a problem here where I couldn't rescale the model without breaking the mesh. So to work around this, I deleted the model and then changed the project's global scale and re-imported the model. If you know an easier way of rescaling animated models in Cinema 4D, I'd really appreciate it if you let me know in the comments down below. If the timing of your animation doesn't line up with the camera movements, change the layout to animate, select the skeleton and move the keyframes until you get the timing right. Now's a good time to clean up your animation. This is done by changing each joint's position and rotation for each frame and can take a long time, so I'll skip this step here. So here we are with a cleaned up animation, and if you disable the solid and save your project, then go back to After Effects, you should see a rough version of your model located in your scene. Now for some 3D models this Cinema 4D file will work fine. However, I've run into a problem here where the lighting and texture information from Cinema 4D doesn't show up in After Effects. So when the animation is finalised, I'll render a video out of Cinema 4D and bring it back into After Effects instead of utilising the Cinema 4D file. So for now, I'll just change the view to OpenGL and tick the No Textures box to give us a rough, untextured view of the model. Go back to Cinema 4D and add a few lights to replicate the lighting in your background footage. To get the model's shadow on the ground, re-enable the track solid, enable Shadow Map Soft on whichever light you want to provide the shadow, then hit Render Preview to see where the shadow is falling. The only problem now is that when you save this in Cinema 4D, the ground plane will be visible back in After Effects. To get rid of this, you need to use an object buffer. Go back to Cinema 4D, right click on the 3D model and add a compositing tag. Under the Object Buffer tab, select Group 1. Next, go to your render settings, enable multipass and add Object Buffer. Also delete the material from your track solid. Now back in After Effects, untick the No Textures box, change the renderer to Standard Final, then duplicate the Cinema 4D file twice and on the top layer enable multipass and select Object Buffer. On the middle layer enable multipass and select RGB image. And on the bottom layer enable multipass and select shadows. Now change the middle layer's track matte to Luma matte of the top layer and change the bottom shadow layer's blending mode to multiply. Now that we're happy with the lighting and shadow, we'll render a video out of Cinema 4D. Under the render settings, I'll enable ambient occlusion, check my resolution settings, select the output format as AVI video and hit render. Once the video is rendered out, I'll import it into After Effects and drag it into my timeline. Since this is replacing our middle Cinema 4D file, I'll delete that one and drag the AVI video into its place. Then I'll change the track matte to the Luma matte of the top Cinema 4D file once again. To get rid of the white halo, I'll pre-compose the top two layers and then add a simple choker. The final step is to use a few compositing tricks to better blend your 3D model into the background footage. The main ones I used was curves adjustments to match the colours, slight camera lens blur to get rid of the model's extreme sharpness, a match grain effect and selected the background footage as the source layer, and applied motion blur to all layers. Lastly, mask out the bench so it appears in front of the model.
But that's it for this one, guys. I hope this has helped you with your own animations. If you haven't already, please subscribe for more short films and filmmaking tutorials. Also, Red Belly Media has a new Patreon page, so I'll leave a link to that in the description down below if you want to support us. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.